Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a very special pre-ramble. Usually we don't do things kind of like this, but this is going to be a little bit different because we have some serious business to talk about. I am Menoth John. You know, usually we go ahead and put these pre-rambles out as part of our Patreon, but we're giving this as a free kind of along for the ride because it's a subject that hits so many different people along with the cronies and the brushheads and everybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Painting with Menoth John pre-ramble. I am, of course, Menoth John. And up there in the catbird seat, you will see, of course, the co-host with the mo-host, Mr. John Spencer.
Hello.
And, of course, we also have the irrational Gonzo, as usual.
What?
What? All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, we also have with us Seth Watkins. He is painting his ass off right now.
Woo!
Yep, he is sketching up, doing the highlighting and low lighting on Jaga Jaga, who is going to be our very special model. We're going to be featuring an awful lot about making the most of your zenithal priming as a part of the main show. But that is not what the pre-ramble is all about today, folks. This is going to be going out to everybody, not just the patrons as usual. There's just been a couple of things to talk about, hasn't there been, guys?
Yeah,
Just a
quite a bit
little.
of news this week, yeah.
So,
Got
starting off with a little Kraken. You know, usually we don't talk about what we're having here during the pre-ramble, but we're going to make a small exception. I'm having a little Kraken. What about you boys?
Organic chocolate stout?
Organic, you say?
Yes.
And what about you, John?
I've got Captain Morgan's Cannon Blast.
And Seth, you're having a paintbrush.
It's delicious.
There you go. So what's going to happen during the regular show is Seth, during the painting part, is going to switch places with me. So you'll be watching him doing his painting right here on the show, and I will be having the other rig to talk to and all that kind of good stuff. So you're going to miss my handsome as hell 48-year self on here, and I know Gonzo just about threw up in his shoe on that one. But anyway, so the press gang, it got done in this week. And basically, Gonzo, you're a press ganger. Why don't you walk us through a little bit of what, from your perspective, took place this week?
Well, I was sitting in a meeting, and all of a sudden I get my phone starts going crazy with text messages, emails, Facebook posts, and everything going, fuck, is pretty much what everybody said. And then my email came through, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, I had a feeling this is probably going to happen based on what we'd been seeing in our press gang forums. And it had kind of been mentioned by a couple of press gangers that they think that it was going to get shut down. And then, of course, after reading it, I was like, well, shit, there's like almost 15 years of my life, which is okay. I mean, 15 good years, not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Or however long I've been a press ganger. And then everybody started getting into of why, the quote unquote real reason.
Yeah.
And that came about because of the Magic conference or lawsuit, I'm pretty sure, is what the real reason behind it is.
Yeah, so let's take a step back for a second and kind of paint the landscape a little bit. So, you know, one of the things that we understand and we know about is that the press gang is a volunteer organization. Everybody knows this. One of the ways that the volunteers were compensated was by if you would conduct an event or you take part in an event, depending on the size of the event or the type of event, you would receive points. Those points could then be turned into used for turning into privateer press product. And there was a couple of things that transpired over the last couple of years. WotC, Wizards of the Coast, has been sued by a group of judges for their events, claiming that they were not being compensated properly for their time, getting breaks, all kinds of different things that would normally transpire through normal labor law. And that particular lawsuit continues to wind its way through the legal system. To this point, nothing has been decided on that case. John, do you have any perspective? I know you're very tuned into a lot of different gaming scenes. In this case, is there anything you have to add to that particular?
Actually, I've been on a legal blog a couple legal blogs, and they all the ones that discuss it say the same thing: is that there is no way Wizards of the Coast is going to win this, because it is technically they are employees. What they say is technically true if they went about it a kind of shitty way.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to give everybody a little bit of a heads up. Trollton, Seth Watkins is still working on stuff behind the scenes here. He's going to be coming over during the regular part of the show. And Congo, we are early this week just because we want to talk about, during the pre-ramble, this particular issue. We're going to talk about it during the pre-ramble. It's going to be all about the press ganger situation. Then we're going to close the door on it. Because there really, after we get done with saying what we're going to say, there really is no productive reason to continue this conversation. So we're going to say what we're going to say for the first 30 minutes. We're happy to take any kind of questions that might come out of the pre-ramble, give you our opinions for what the hell they're worth, and then we're going to close the door on it. And we're probably never going to talk about this again because it doesn't make any sense. But I agree with you, John. I think that what we're seeing here is privateer press. They talked an awful lot about different things in the memos from the corporate offices. They talked about cost, and we'll get to that here in a minute because it's a legitimate concern. The things that Matt Wilson brought up in his email are, what, from what I read of it, is 100% legit, but it may not have been complete. And go ahead, John.
Yeah, it from what I've read of it, because PG Bowie, I was standing next to him when he read it. From what I've read of it, while everything he says is technically true, I feel like the Magic lawsuit is at the core of it, and I feel like they may have done a slight disservice by not addressing the elephant in the room in that case.
Yeah, and that's my biggest issue with how this was handled, and we'll talk about what we liked about the way it was handled, what we didn't like about what was handled. But John, I think you nailed it right on the head. The number one thing, so far as I'm concerned, is that the press gang has been a very loyal group. For the most part, anytime that you have a group of this kind of size, you will get a few people that will abuse the system. That is not, in general, what the press gang is. I was a press ganger for a few years. I wasn't nearly the press ganger that, let's say, Kim or Gonzo or so many of these people who have been just tireless in their support of this game have been, and very important to this game. To welcoming in new people and developing community. And if there's one thing that the press gang has earned, it's transparency and honesty. And while they may come back later, or they may not, you never know, and be completely transparent, they chose to not address the lawsuit in any of the transmissions that I've seen related to this particular topic. And for me, that is the biggest issue with all of how this was handled. One of the points that was brought up by Matt Wilson was the cost of the program. Now, Gonzo, you really enlightened me as to what the real cost of this program is. And Gonzo, could you walk me through some of the calculations that you and your fellow press gangers had done on this?
Well, I went and we have a website where we can look at our points. And point per point, it's pretty much $1 for $1. But some of the prices are jacked up depending on what you want to pick from the store. And so I took just mine and Kim's because I have an Access to Old account.
Yeah.
And just if I took and I went back through 2012, and that's not counting when I did back in early 2000 because I had been a press ganger that long. The amount of points I accrued were roughly about 10,000 points, which is roughly to almost equivalent on their store to $10,000 worth.
Yeah.
Kim, in the last 5 years, roughly, she had about 7,000 points. And I mean, that's because we work War Machine weekend. And we worked the entire weekend. And you would get so many points per shift, and then you would get so many points for doing so many extra shifts. You would get, and anytime you did a demo, you got points. Anytime you did a tournament, you got points. And you would, most of the times, here's the thing, you never really spent a lot of them on yourself. We were told to spend it on ourselves because that we earned it. But a lot of us, and some of us, did take and spend a lot of it on tournament prize support.
Sure.
Right now I'm sitting on roughly about 1,200 points. and all of that is going directly to prize support because these were Kim's points that are going to be used for that. So I mean, yeah, that's how I got my Kador army. I'm not going to lie.
No.
I didn't pay nearly anything for my Kador army because I had been saving up all these points, and even James sent me a message and he was like, "Damn, that's almost the entire Kador faction." I went, "Yep."
Yeah.
Because I want to play Kador.
Yep, and you know what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The way they had set up the program, you were absolutely using those points it was 100% okay to do. And to Crimson 1919, we're going to get to that. Part of why that they didn't address it is probably because they didn't want to precipitate their greatest fear, which was the lawsuit. But when we, kind of getting back to what we were just talking about, what you just described was two people who were press ganging, who had thousands of dollars in banked points. Now, you multiply that across the number of press gangers that there were, not only in this country, but across the world. And I believe I saw a statistic somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 a year that they could potentially be spending on just those points. Now, Privateer Press, I don't know how many of you, I mean, we play this game. They make these beautiful models. We love what they do. They seem like a big company from the out when you look at them because we're so close to it. They are a teeny tiny company, and their profits, while not bad, are not that amazing either. So when you start adding all these things up, it starts to make a lot of sense that the press gang program was probably costing them more product than, from a dollar standpoint, than was completely okay for them to be giving out. John, your thoughts?
Well, let's just nip that one in the bud. I don't think you understand how little they pay for product.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to use Games Workshop as an example because that's my direct correlation. When I was in a play at Games Workshop, we got metal models, pewter models, in bits we buy weight, 4 cents a gram. And if you think about that, something like my Roadhog, not very heavy, probably cost you less than $1.
Okay.
And they made money off that.
Mm-hmm.
So while there are some costs to the models, keep in mind, if at full price, you're washing that through 2 levels of markup. What the distributor buys it for, and PP makes money off that, and what the store buys it for. So I mean, it's probably you're looking at a quarter the cost as far as actual cost to the company.
So let's
and
talk
based on the labor. I mean, because just getting an idea how much the War Machine weekends that Gonzo and Kim worked. I mean, all weekend that's 3-4 days, and full days, probably 8-hour working days, for a weekend at any rate over 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. It's going to be way more than that product is. So while that is, the cost is an idea, but
I don't disagree with that at all, John. If you look at what the press gangers were being compensated for from a dollar standpoint, it was nowhere near from a cost standpoint, or even if you took it retail, than compared to an actual dollar hourly rate, what a person could or should, based on even a minimum wage, would get. The Privateer has, I'm not privy to what their supply chain is all about. They have struggled from a supply chain standpoint as a company, and I don't know whether or not the press gangers were able to get product that other distributors were not able to get. And
I don't know either.
I don't know either.
That occasionally they'd have problems getting stuff, but I never heard of any super long waits necessarily.
So, I mean, go ahead, Gonzo.
Just to say what we do get, and I want to go with what Chili was saying also. From a cost point, we weren't being compensated, but it was money that I didn't have to pay out of my own account to get models I wanted. So that was okay by me. But as a PG, at the very beginning, we were getting stuff that was early on. I remember getting the Hordes beta stuff early on. And then, of course, people broke it, and we weren't allowed to have special privileges.
Yeah.
There was very few times we got things around with everybody, especially when Colossals and Gargantuans came out, we were very limited on what we could get and how much and when we could get it. So I mean, there was some.
So I mean, at the bare minimum, killing the press gang probably put about $35,000 in their pocket right off the get-go per year because they didn't replace the headcount at the quartermaster position. And then if you argue that if they're in somewhat of a base-loaded situation with their supply chain where they are not keeping a large inventory or they are hitting any type of a inability to deliver type situation, then you can make an argument around the dollar cost of the product versus profit. And that's probably not completely legit because people were still getting product. For the most part, their problems with supply chain were mostly in manufacturing and design more than they were necessarily with logistical delivery of product. It's not that they couldn't get the product to distributors. It was that the goddamn product didn't exist because they couldn't figure out how to fucking manufacture it.
Yes.
Which is two entirely different products. For those of you who don't work in manufacturing roles, those are two completely different and alien situations. Inability to execute a manufacturing plan is as worlds apart from actually getting the shit to your store as Mars is from Venus. So, you know, it's hard to judge because none of the three of us here on this show have any kind of privy to what's going on behind the scenes. But from what I have been able to glean, is that the issues revolve more around in dealing with their manufacturing partners who are, for the most part, if it's not resin or metal, it's overseas. So in any of the plastics, any of the new hard plastics, all of that stuff is the soft, shitty plastics are mostly a supply chain they should understand by now. The hard plastics are still stuff that they're kind of working through the details on with newer partners. But so there you go, folks. That's one aspect of it. Is there's the dollar cost of it. Now, it would be nice if if Matt was able to come out and say, I don't know if he can come out and say whether or not the lawsuit had anything to do with it, but I wonder, guys, if there wasn't the possibility of a way to revamp the press gang program so that it was of a lower cost to them, or make it such that legally they could do it. And guys, I'm interested to get your perspective on, does this mean the death of all future volunteer programs, not only for Privateer, but for other games? Gonzo, what are your thoughts?
I know that I also work, War Machine Weekend, and on the back end of that, and I've talked to people, and everybody's kind of scrambling. What happens? Because even though they got rid of the press gangers, there's nothing that says that a press ganger can't go back and sue them. Still.
Yeah.
For this. So, I mean, that's just because they got rid of us doesn't mean that some asshat's not going to go and say, I'm going to sue you because of lost wages. Because I know that we're looking at, because I also run, do things with Privateer Weekend. And so all those people are looking, going, what do we do? How do we handle this? I have my own business that I help with, and we had to go back and check our stuff too, because we have volunteers that work there. And being a nonprofit, we were able to get around that a bit.
Makes sense.
And we don't have to worry about it as much. Doesn't mean they still can't come back and sue, because anybody can sue.
Yeah.
But it covers us more, because it goes back to, I mean, I even, as after it happened, we started talking about it, I was like, what about Gen Con? Because Gen Con employs hundreds and hundreds of volunteers to do their stuff.
Yeah.
Imagine if that came back and they got sued.
It's John, go ahead.
There are some different legal bits to it. It's not just having volunteers. It's sort of the way that they're handling the volunteers. They ticked a lot of the boxes that made them look like employees, and as long as they tick those boxes, there's no way to go back, because labor laws exist for a reason.
Yeah, they sure do. They absolutely do, and I support those labor laws 100%, because it was situations back a long time ago at the turn of the 20th century that that a lot of people fought very, very hard so people can be compensated justly for their work. Where I fear a little bit for the chilling effect that something like the Magic lawsuit is going to have across the board. But maybe it's going to cause these volunteer programs to maybe become a little bit stronger as a result of them. I don't know. We'll see. John, you come from a very strong GW background. You were part of GW back when the Outrider program was a thing. Now,
Yes, I was.
now there's something to be said for GW having been ahead of a lot of these things years and years and years before where some of these other companies are. They're almost existing in a different cycle than Privateer is, like almost a full generation cycle. John, give me some perspective on how Outriders were and perhaps what we're looking at towards the future.
Well, I wasn't too involved with the Outrider program. I only dealt with them sort of tangentially, placing their orders and such. But, literally GW canceled their Outrider, then called the Commando program, for the same reasons, money.
Mm-hmm.
Because GW had a much more, open style. I don't know how press gangers get paid, but be honest, you work at one of their events enough, you get a hotel room and all that stuff, and they didn't skimp on it. It wasn't no 4-person to a hotel room type of deal. 2 beds, 2 people.
Yeah.
It was very, very, very generous. They did give out a lot of product too, so I have to imagine that Matt Wilson's money issues are actually a thing that exists. Because
I think so too.
GW didn't have any lawsuit bearing down on it to cancel its program, but it did because between its store expansion themselves and differing, we say, management styles, let's say, they decided to cancel it. And I was standing with the Commandos in a Games Day hall when they announced it, and woof, that was tough.
Oh, I bet it was. I bet it absolutely was. We've got 8 more minutes that we're gonna dedicate to this particular subject, and as we look forward to where we have been and where we might be, I was recently welcomed into a Facebook group. I got an invite to a group known as it's dedicated to former press gangers. Nobody was more surprised than me to get invited to that group. I'm going to put it out there right now. But it was very kind. But what Privateer, I think, is hoping in the back of their heads is what is organically happening right now. And it's taken place over the last 2 or 3 days. There is a group that's calling themselves the Revenant Crew, which is ironic on so many different levels. It just drips poetry. And they want to continue the good work of the press gang even without the support necessarily of Privateer, where they're doing the same kinds of event organization and kind of things that the press gang was without the official backing of Privateer. That gets Privateer square off of the liability front and gets Privateer exactly the same kind of benefits that they were getting while there was a press gang. They'll still have people who are developing community and still pushing the game forward. I wonder how sustainable it is, though, to be truly honest. Gonzo, your thoughts on the Revenant Crew?
Actually, I haven't been invited to that, so
I'll invite you. I'll invite you. That's an oversight.
I've actually been in talk with other people that they still want to do what we did, because what we did, yeah, we got points. Yeah, we got some bonus booby stuff, but you know what? We did it because we like the people. It's the community. It's what we do. We, want to do the volunteer stuff. We want everybody to have a good time, and I think that's what the key part is. If it works out, it depends on how everything's going to have to be. Can it be a nonprofit organization? Can it provide the law so some jerk doesn't try to sue the Revenant Crew? Can the Revenant Crew be hired out? Will PP buy or hire out the Revenant Crew or allow the Revenant Crew to do stuff as a third party, type entity? And that could be across any game, because we've got plenty of game companies out there that are going to have to start looking at their volunteer program.
Yeah, it's a good question. it depends, I think, the direction that the Revenant crew decides to take itself. If it wants to present itself as an organization that represents the former PGs, I think that way there be monsters, to be honest with you, because that will lead down the road to what has become of the Judge program, which is the judges, in case we haven't heard, got a bit of a different deal. And that is they are going to become temp employees of Privateer Press, which means they will be paid for whatever many hours, I guess it is, and they will be issued W-2s. So that is legit HR employee stuff at that point. The Revenant crew, if it decides to go in the direction of that, I don't know that Privateer will want a whole lot to do with them, to be honest. Because if it becomes a contracting organization, that's probably going to be a problem. If it remains a completely, we're doing this because we love it, and like the fuel rats of Elite Dangerous, that's an entirely different deal. I don't know. John, your thoughts?
Well, I want to touch on what you guys said is that I don't know how it's going to go. I'm sure someone with an HR background can jump in and help, and hopefully there's someone out there who can. But everybody's remembered that there are a lot of not press gangers out there working too, in addition to the hardworking press gangers, and no one has to stop what they're doing. You just unfortunately get compensated a different way.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully everyone who's doing that can get compensated by the stores they go to. I know some of those stores are kind of tight-fisted and want something for nothing just for the love of it, but
yeah,
you know, a lot of us will do it for the love of it. I've gone to games and stuff to play in a tournament, jumped in and found that there was no judge showing up, so suddenly I was running a tournament.
Yep.
I mean, I do that because I want the community to keep going, and we're all going to do that, but we're all going to have to get with our stores. We're actually going to have to communicate with them and be a better community.
Yep.
Or a more communicative community than we have been. It used to be easy peasy, run some events, send some paperwork, jobs are good. And
I'll see. And that's what I did. As soon as I got the information, I called up my store owner and said, hey, this is going down. This is what's happening. I'm not leaving. I'm still going to do demos. I'm still going to run tournaments. I'm still here. We're still doing stuff. And he's like, I figured you were because you're that cool of a dude, and you'll get compensated from me for what I do for people that run any other tournament. I'm like, fine by me, man.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, this is what I want to get across with this 30 minutes that we've spent on this topic, is that for those of you who've played this game for any length of time, I want you, the next time you get to the game store, on behalf of John and Gonzo and myself, I want you to go over to whoever it was that was at one time your press ganger and give them a big thanks. Because those folks have been kicking it hard for a long time to help bring you the community that you are fortunate enough to be a part of. I know that I'm very fortunate here in Wisconsin. Matt Wonke is an amazing press ganger and does it for the love of the game. And Gonzo, people have been very, very blessed to have you and Kim who have done the things that you guys have done for your local metas. So on behalf of the entire Painting with Menoth John organization, which is like, what, fucking 3 of us, here's to the press gangers that you love and the press gangers that are doing what it takes every day. Hey, Ron.
Ron.
Folks, we're going to keep playing this game. We're going to keep painting the shit. We're going to keep on coming here every Sunday afternoon or evening or whatever the fuck time it is where you are. And we're going to keep on doing this. So,
I have one other thing I'd like to add or
go ahead.
ask. Coming from a money point that we were talking about of Privateer Press, I'm kind of curious how this is going to hit their bottom line with getting new players into the game.
It's something that we're going to definitely have to watch for.
Yes, that's something I mean, 'cause I was thinking about that, and I was talking with other people, and I was like, that's because the press gangers brought people to the game, and we help people to the game. I'm kind of curious how that's going to affect their bottom line, and that's going to tell with time. But you know, I'm just kind of curious,
folks.
Seed of thought.
Yep, absolutely. No, it's a great thought, Gonzo. You know, when this first announcement came out, you know, this could have gotten to be a very much of a negative thing. We could have gone on here and just opened up both barrels. There's a lot to absorb in all of this. It's a very complex subject, and it's a subject that Privateer has decided that this is the way they're going to go at it. And I think that all of us that have so many of their toy soldiers sitting all over their house, we hope that things work out correctly for them. Make sure you're giving the love to the press gangers and those people who had that role in the past. make sure you get out there to your local events and support them. Make sure you get out there and paint your stuff, so because nothing looks better than a fully painted army out on a table. And you know, folks, on behalf of the organization here at Painting with Menoth John, we're going to keep on coming here every week, supporting the hobby in the way that we do, and we hope that you all have a fantastic time. Folks, we are going to we're going to stop the stream here real quick. We are closing the door on all this crap. We have a lot of exciting stuff that we're going to bring to you here in the next 90 minutes. We have Seth Watkins in the house. We have amazing new models coming from Privateer Press, thanks to Doug Hamilton and all the good guys there. We have a lot of exciting stuff. You hang on here. We're going to teach you how to paint the shit out of your models, one way or the other. This is Painting with Menoth John, and we will be right back.